Hey, Son, how are you?
I'm cool. How are you? This is great. We're going to be
Yes,
sitting down doing this today.
I'm so excited to just have a conversation about CRMs. Actually, this morning I went to the dentist and
Hard.
they yeah. He started working on my teeth. I asked him a little bit about himself. He's been a dentist for 32 years. I told him about my business and he said, "Oh, I have a nonprofit and it's been around for a couple of years." And I said, "Yeah, I like to train nonprofits on how to do fundraising. And a lot of times I find out they don't have the most basic skills like a CRM." So,
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all because usually most, if not most organizations are really they're trying to do everything like as grassroots as possible, and they don't realize it. So yeah, to sit there and have this conversation with the guy, one to find out he has a nonprofit, which is like super random, and two to then he's like, well, I don't have anything. It's like, well, done. So what was how'd you end the conversation?
so I actually just talked about the value of a CRM because it truly is one of the first conversations I have with almost every nonprofit. And he has been down there and he said, when I started, we had a lot of support, we had a lot of momentum, and we had people giving to us. And so then I shared, well, if you don't have a CRM or some way to capture a way to contact those individuals back, it's not that they lose excitement, it's that they lose contact, right? And
Yep.
so they don't know that you're still doing your thing or that you're growing or that they don't know any of that. And so he's like, "Yeah, that makes a lot of sense." He actually said he'd reach back out to me, so that's great.
Well,
Um,
is that for your follow up too?
yeah. We'll probably have more conversation then too, so,
That's a great. It's a great way to get the ball rolling. To be sitting in the dentist chair with your mouth open wide, and yeah. And just imagine the information you could give over to him when your mouth is not like open wide.
Yep, it's true, it's true. So, but CRMs, it's one of your things. It's one of my things because I teach nonprofits how to do fundraising and it's the basic tool. It is like the number one tool every organization needs. And you like to talk about how not all CRMs are created equal. So we're going to have a conversation about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I actually discovered this a while ago, long before we even built GiveSuite, is that all these platforms really out there, they kind of all focus on the same thing at their core, and especially in the nonprofit world, and even in the business world too. Like they all focus on the same things at their core. But in the nonprofit world, it's donor management and fundraising. And for some reason, they skip the marketing side because they think that everybody knows about them and loves them. And like, well, hey, wait a minute. We don't need to market ourselves because we're like, everybody knows us. Nobody cares about it. That's aside. But, when everything is focused on donor management and fundraising, and then, each one has their little shticks and tricks and bells and whistles and features, they all focus on features. But when it comes to a nonprofit organization, you know, one, it's a business, so you have to have business. You have to have the tools you need to run your business. But most, if not all, nonprofit organizations, at least I've dealt with, and I'm sure you deal with the same type of people, they are not tech savvy humans. They do not understand like fancy schmancy AI generated reports that blow your nose and make the coffee for you. And KP, they don't understand all the buzzwords, KPIs, SEO, SEM, like you know fancy little reports. They don't care. They don't understand it. They just need to know how's my organization growing with constituent wise, how much money we raised in last year, what campaigns and which programs are working the best, and how do we run it back. And everything else is secondary. But they also need to be actively marketing themselves, because if you're not actively marketing yourself and continuing the conversation after you get money from them, then people are going to slowly but surely disappear. Just like you said with your dentist. Like he's like, well, people are giving us money in the beginning, but then they stopped. It's like, no shit, they stopped because you're not talking. And so having the right system that does that is the key to winning at your nonprofit. And as I said, when it comes to not all systems being created equal, you have to understand what you're getting into when you're getting on these calls with people, because these people, and I've had these conversations with people, these companies are going to come at you and they just want to sell you features. I literally had this conversation with a resale partner of ours, where he went to this one larger company that, and he's like, I have X amount of accounts that we manage, and we're looking to work with you to try to have everything under one roof and streamlined. And they're like, well, we have this feature and this feature and this feature and this feature. He's like, I don't give a crap about your features. I want to know how you can work with me in this specific instance, and I'm going to give you a lot of business. And they're like, well, we don't work like that, and we don't blah blah blah. And I was like, that's stupid, because you want to bring on a ton of accounts with me, and we will sit and work with you to be able to create a system, create the workflow, and create a platform within our platform that's going to work for you. And a lot of people don't understand that software is about strategy. It's about how are you going to implement what you're using, and how are you going to come out of these conversations, these demos as an educated consumer. Just like anything, would you go buy a car without understanding what's under the hood first? Would you go buy like a refrigerator without understanding the specifications? Buy a house? You know, everything in life is all about becoming an educated consumer. And this, especially with your nonprofit, the software that you're going to literally be using day in and day out to keep track of the people who care about you, the people who want to be part of your organization, your fan base, and the money that they're giving you has to be gone out and thought out after with care and consideration as well. Don't just go out there and buy something because you're bored. But I had this conversation with one guy who came on with me once. He's like, we're a small nonprofit in Canada. I literally just inherited this job. I don't know why I'm doing it. And my board says that we should use Salesforce because they use Salesforce in their real estate company. And I was like, well, that's dumb. I was like, you're two people. Yeah, but they're like, well, it's free. I was like, it's free like a puppy. And he's like, yeah, I hear that. He's like, yeah, at the end of the day, they didn't actually end up working with us. They ended up going with Boomerang. And I still said to him, I said, I hope you think this through, because you're two people volunteer based, and you don't make, you're like barely doing like 100K a year. So, you know,
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you said that. Like, I think so a lot of times nonprofits actually they don't know that one, this type of software exists. When they create a nonprofit, they don't know that this type of software exists a lot of times. Um, at least in my experience with a lot of the organizations that I work with. Then when
right.
they find out that it exists, they don't know the questions that they need to ask. They don't know they don't know what would be best, right? And they do think that, oh, well, I don't have a lot of donors yet, so I don't need this.
Right.
And it is true. And there are some nonprofits that operate really well without a donor management system, but they have systems in place, right? But if you're
Right.
not a person who can create systems on your own, then
Right.
you need to,
But,
then it's really important that you find something that already has the systems built in, right?
but
Because
that's
that,
also, I was going to say, like, that's also like, you may not need it now, but it's future proofing your organization, because like, why would you like, it's like waterproofing your house. Like, that it's going to rain. Like, that stuff's going to happen. Why are you just not going to do it? Like, it's a
well,
short-term loss, I put it short-term loss, long-term gain kind of type of
mhm.
situation, you know?
I love the example actually. And I'll tell you that my dad once told me when I was complaining about something in my old house, and he's like, I bet they were figuring it out as they went. And the thing about building a house is that a lot of times, if you're building it yourself, you are figuring it out as you go. Like you're smart enough to figure it out, but you go like in roundabout ways. You may not
Right.
take the direct route. I
Right.
do think that by adopting a software like GiveSuite or any CRM helps you streamline your path to doing it a better way, right? You're still gonna
Oh, for sure.
have to, it's trial and error. As an entrepreneur, I know trial and error better than I've ever known it in my life, right?
Oh, for sure.
but at
But
least it's giving your trial and error direction.
yeah, no, 100%. And it's just, but again, it goes back to the strategy. It also goes back to strategy for implementation. Everything is strategy for implementation. And if you don't have a strategy based on what you want to do, you could be using like you could be using Blu-ray, you could be using Blackbook, you could be using like, any of the big, anything. You can use spreadsheets. But if you don't have a strategy of how you're going to implement and everything's just haphazard all over the place, then it doesn't matter. And that's the key to understanding what, your wants versus your needs when it comes to choosing the right system, the right platforms. And I go back to it, it's like you may not need it now, but it's future proof for your organization because the whole goal is you want to grow, right? Unless you don't, then like why did you just waste your entire time incorporating an organization, getting all this stuff set up, doing all the stupid things, and I say this with love, all the stupid things that you don't to get your nonprofit set up if you have zero intention of growing it. The truth is I actually know somebody who did that, and he just did not have, like, he just could not get himself to grow his organization when I told him all this little organic things to do. That's another conversation. But my point being is that like he, he when you may not need a CRM now, you may think, well, we're working fine on Google Sheets. Well, that's great. Google Sheets and Stripe and GiveButter or something like that. But it's like if you're actually serious about growing an organization, create a list of your wants versus your needs. Look at all the systems out there that are within your price range of what you're looking to do, and then lay down all the tools that you're already currently using. Even though, yeah, everyone gets a nonprofit discount, but it still adds up because all these other systems, all these other tools like email marketing tools and graphic design tools and AI tools and all these other things, they cost more money every time you grow with it. So you need to really understand what your costs are and what you're looking to do in order to invest in growing and scale your organization. And then once you understand all that, then you can go sit down and do the research into these platforms and see what they're offering and have the conversation with them. But most of these guys, they want to give you a demo. And I hate demos because demos just make you feel like so much information overload that how can you make a decision right like based on these demos? And you have to go back and watch it. And these guys are talking a million miles an hour. And you're just like, what the heck is going on? I don't understand any of this. And so I've actually discovered that nobody likes demos. And I've pivoted to what we call strategy calls because, as I said, software is all about strategy and having the right strategy, understanding what your problem is. Like going to the therapist, what's your problem? Well, my problem is this. Well, okay, we can help you solve this problem, and everything else is secondary.
Yeah. I mean, so something that you said, I think that it's as they're ready to grow, and we're not all
Right.
ready to grow at the same time. As you're ready to grow, what do you need to look for? And then I think a strategy call is a good strategy to be able to talk about what do you really need. And I really work with a lot of nonprofits at all stages, including the brand new ones. It's actually easiest, I think, to work with a brand new nonprofit because they still know that they don't know a lot. And sometimes it's
Right.
a little bit harder when they've been in business for a while and
Right.
what they've done has worked, which is great. I'm so grateful that what they've done has been able to work. But they struggle to believe that, a software can make a big difference. Uh, but for small teams, especially, software shift can make a huge difference. I was actually working with a nonprofit not too long ago, and they shifted to a CRM where they had never had one before. And it was the first time that all of their volunteer board, who was a really active working board, could communicate with one another. You know,
Wow.
think yeah, right? Well, could
Wow.
communicate in a meaningful way on the work, right?
Okay.
They emailed each other and they would have meetings with each other, but to be able to look at the same client at the same time and to be able to see all the same information about them, that was something new for them.
That
Um,
makes sense.
right. So CRMs allow that. And I think a lot of times as organizations look at CRMs, they do get overwhelmed because they're very powerful softwares. So how do we, when we approach implementing a CRM at our organization, minimize that overwhelm, that transition overwhelm, so that it's not, um, because a lot of times that's where the shutdown comes. And they'll say,
Oh yeah,
I've heard both the software can't do this or, oh, the software can do this, but not ours. Right?
and it's going to cost you more money.
Yeah, right. Yes. I mean, I used to work
Uh,
in healthcare and I can't tell you how many times we bought a software and the next piece was $10,000 more
I
or
had I
$15,000.
had a call actually with the woman who booked with me, and she was interested in GiveSuite, and she said that she was using Donor Perfect. And I'm name dropping all these systems right now, just so people understand, not to throw shade at anybody, just so people understand what's going on. And she was using Donor Perfect, and she said that they had lost several large recurring donations because the cards had bounced, and there was no feature inside Donor Perfect to update a card within a contact record. And I said, that's elementary with us. And that just makes sense. She said, well, they do offer it, but they said you're going to have to upgrade your plan. And I said,
Per
that's weird.
card?
Yep.
That's odd.
That's what I said. And I said, that's ridiculous. I said, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
And
that is a fundamental difference with GiveSuite is that all of the components are available for one flat rate. Like,
yes,
right. You
well,
don't
that
charge by components.
correct. And that was something that also that I wanted to I was really adamant on, because again, we're dealing with small organizations, right? And they generally don't have loads of money lying around. And if they do, they have to allocate it properly. They don't know about technology grants, but we have that conversation on another webinar about
Mhm.
technology grants. And they, having everything all over the place makes life really hard. So when we built
In multiple
GiveSuite, the whole
systems.
yes, in multiple systems, multiple passwords, multiple people in and out of the system. And then the fact that a lot of these other platforms will charge you per user ends up getting costly. So then you have to figure out, okay, so who's using the CRM, who's not using the CRM? How, which volunteers are we sticking on here, which admin do we and then because you don't want to be paying like thousands of dollars a month, and then people ultimately aren't using the product. And I've seen this. People pay thousands of dollars a month. I had a conversation with another lady, and I love using real life examples because this is how we can understand and conceptualize this thing. I had a conversation. She was paying $5,000 a year for their their nonprofit software. They had 250 contacts in their database. She was the only one using the system. And
Yeah. So, okay. So I just want to recap what you said. You said you can get charged by user, you can get charged by feature. Um, what were the other ones?
yeah, the more you can get charged by constituents also,
Oh, yeah.
the more growth you have within your organization. Most platforms work on a sliding scale. So therefore they're going to be charging you more per contact. Now, they claim that it's because, it exhausts their servers to add the more contacts you're adding. Um, but it's a bit of rubbish, and it's just ways for them to make money.
Yeah, that is the other one, and I do know that one because I have an organization that I work with, and they just got a large increase in their database. So they're like
Yep.
at 9,000 now, and so all of a sudden everything was like shifting in their budget needs
Mhm.
because they didn't have enough money to cover some of the fees with that.
Yes.
So yeah, so those are great things for people to look out for whenever they're looking at softwares. Ask about
Yeah.
the because as you grow, and if you grow quickly, those costs
Right.
can grow really quickly and you may not have budgeted for it, right? So,
Right.
so
And
that's
that's the biggest thing. That's one of the biggest things is that, you're as an organization, as a business, you're budgeting. You're budgeting for software, budgeting for employees, you're budgeting for marketing. Everything's a budget. And if you all of a sudden see growth, which is a good thing that you weren't
yeah,
predicting, then your costs go through the roof. I remember one of the catalysts for me actually getting into this space was when MailChimp dropped their free plan from 2,000 contacts to 500 and limited the amount of services anybody could do in the free plan. I was just like, this is stupid. So I wrote that's a recurring theme with me. A lot of things become stupid, and I fixed.
I never use that word.
No,
No.
All right. But but I wrote this whole article on LinkedIn about it, and it went really, really big. And I said we have to change something because there's so many organizations that are relying on these free or next to free like tiers of things, and it's hindering their growth. And this is something that is really needs to be taken into consideration when you're looking for a CRM and you're looking for a donor management system. Is this going to hinder my growth, or is this going to help my growth? And am I going to be making the donations and using the platform accordingly to be able to cover my costs? Because if you're paying $2,000, $3,000 a month for your software, and yes, people are doing that, then are you going to be able to recoup that in donations? Are you going to be able to cover your costs? And a lot of people don't know the answer to that because they're only paying for donor management systems and fundraising tools, but they're not utilizing marketing systems and marketing tools to be able to go out there and actively engage and actively re-engage and create a fan base versus a ATM.
Yeah. So that is one thing that I love about GiveSuite. It is something unique to GiveSuite in my awareness. Like I don't know of any other nonprofit CRMs that do it currently, but it allows you to manage your marketing. So in terms of that, it allows you to make websites. It also allows you to, so if you need landing pages, you can do that. You can set up your mailing systems in advance. So very similar to a Constant Contact or MailChimp, you can plan out your whole email campaign. But what's really wonderful about the email campaign is you can set up funnels for
Mhm.
automation. So like depending on how people interact with it, that can shift what they might receive next. So when we
Correct.
talk about donor segmentation and fundraising, it's really important that even though we're sending out our communications in bulk, we are making sure that we're responding in a unique way to their response. So, for example, if I send out an email and I talk about an event and I talk about 3 events that we're having and they click on one of them, they're a little bit more interested in that one, right? And so then we
Correct.
can respond back to them about that specific event and have kind of that follow up chat. Hey, I saw that you might be interested in this. Let me tell you a little bit more about it, or whatever that is, right?
Correct.
So it's so powerful in that component. But then, and it's like, and wait, there's more. I always, the infomercial, and wait, there's more. But then you can also schedule your social media and have responses to social media also through the platform. And as I'm a one person shop, it's just
Mhm.
me. And in fact, I feel super behind right
Mhm.
now because I had to take a month out of my calendar to do other things in my life. They weren't all planned, some of them were unexpected, but this happens for nonprofits too, right?
Yep.
One of our people or maybe our only person gets sick or they have a family emergency and now they're behind and it's a struggle to be able to maintain all of these individual systems. Where at least when it's all encompassed within one system, one, we
And
can go in there and catch up. And we can also have had things done in advance. Having things done in advance for my business right now is what has really saved me. People don't know how behind I am.
oh, for
But
sure.
we could
And
have that
that
with
that's the
nonprofits.
key. But that's the key because again, nonprofits are just businesses in the tax status. I mean, creating that, scheduling out all your content and really creating these automations that are going to take over. And yeah, again, you said it yourself with fundraising segmentation. Because if you're just like spraying and blanketing your communications to people, it's not gonna work out so well. But and we've seen this with our users, and we've seen this with our clients and on our agency side, is that once you start segmenting out your list, your audiences, I see this in my own email, right? I run my own email marketing. I have a newsletter that comes out every week, and we keep segmenting out our list based on the way people engage with us. And so now we have a very, very condensed list of people that are opening, clicking, and engaging with our newsletter. After going down from thousands of emails, we're up to like 650 people who are actively engaging on a weekly basis. And you can do that in GiveSuite. You can do that in some of these other platforms too. The issue that I've seen, and this is something to really consider when you're looking into a system, is what's the email marketing platform like? How and do they offer SMS marketing? Is there what how and what are the automations and workflows like? And what does it look like to build the automations and workflows? Because a lot of these platforms are very limiting because automations, workflows, email and SMS were all marketing components where and when a system is not marketing focused and marketing, marketer friendly, they're not going to, you know, put put their best, best resources into developing these types of things. So this is why people are still using MailChimp or Constant Contact. And if they're super tech savvy with their automation workflows, they're using Zapier or Pabbly or Make or something like that. But like the idea is, and you said it yourself, most organizations are one man shows, one woman shows, trying to like juggle a million different things, volunteers, and to be able to try to train somebody to go in and do the newsletters and to go do the, send this thing to this thing and all the other stuff. It's cumbersome. You don't have the headspace for it. And then because they're volunteers, you can't get yelled at the volunteer. You can't get pissed off at the volunteer. They're giving you your time, like so when you have a system that does everything for you, then it makes your life a lot easier. And so really deeper dive into the marketing components of these other platforms because you will find that they that's not what they do very well.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny. When I started working, I used to have a boss who would say, "Barton, can you do this?" And I'd be like, "I can do it. I can do," and I believe this. Honest goodness, this is my philosophy. I can do anything. If somebody on earth can do it, I can figure it out. And he'd be like, "Okay, do it." And I would. But let me tell you, it wasn't always pretty because I was figuring it out as I go. And so, what I've learned with software using over the years is that a lot of times what organizations do is they adopt the software and it wasn't intended for all of those purposes and needs. And so they can do it, right? They can
Mhm.
jerry rig it. I don't know where that word comes from, but that's they can
Neither
they
do
can make
I.
up a way they can make up a way to do it. However, it because it wasn't ideal for that situation, the results are less than ideal or it's much more cumbersome. I remember one software that we worked on didn't have reporting for advancement. So it didn't have reporting on the donor piece of it all. And so we had to go through like three other programs to get the reports that we needed. And we had to do it on a regular basis. So now we're training multiple people on multiple platforms to be able to get one report. Or actually what ended up happening was I became the only one who knew how to get the reports, which is fine if everything's
Mhm.
fine with me, right? But as
Right.
soon as something happens to that one person who
Yep.
knows how to get the reports, now all of a sudden
Well,
it's maybe not catastrophic, but it's very, very inconvenient. And it can at times be
yeah.
catastrophic for an organization. So getting a software that does what you needed to do up front, and it was created for that purpose, makes the process so much,
Well,
easier.
you touched on a very important point too, and something also to look into when you're going exploring is that, you know, a lot of times you have that team champion, that one person who knows what to do and nobody else does. And then let's say they quit or they move on or you want to move off of the system that you're using. So a lot of the times these companies have, they have contracts where if you want to cancel your contract, one, you got to pay. Two, they don't let you they're very, very finicky about letting you move your data, helping you move your data. And then also if you have somebody who knows what's going on, but then no longer is there, then you have to figure out how you're going to solve this problem because any delays in data management, any delays in the regular workflow, like not like workflow automation, but like the regular workflow of the organization
Mhm.
is going to really, really like get messed up.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I like about what we've done inside our system is that it's really easy to plug and play because we've made it idiot and we have redundancies upon redundancies and the work with you handholds you in order to make sure that you understand what you're doing. And then if somebody leaves, moves on, goes to a different place or whatever, we have it so that it, like I said, it's plug and play people so that you don't have to like worry about what's going to happen next because it's such an easy thing to use and it's easy, like once obviously like every other software tool anything it's overwhelming once you get in one when you get in the door. Once you
Yeah.
get settled, once you take your shoes off, once you start walking around feeling it out, things get easier. And this is something really to consider because again, in nonprofits, especially smaller nonprofits, you have a lot of turnover, you have a lot of changes, you have all sorts of different things, and you have to make sure that, that the core of it, the management system is is being upkept and being so this is why understand what the policies are in these different platforms, understanding what make sure you understand and your team understands how to use the system so you're not relying on one single person
Yes.
because he or she could leave.
Yes. Yeah. And I do think it's super, super important to make sure you have software that's going to be really easy to work with if that happens. Another thing is, something that you said, record it. Record how you do things. Even when you said you have plug and play for people, but the organization needs to make sure that they have it documented how they do their own steps.
Correct. Have your
And
SOPs.
yes. And so, like, I always say I've had so many administrative assistants, and people who have worked on my team over the years, and I can tell you that the best of them always had what we would call their Bible. Whatever their Bible was for their particular, their particular piece of work, you could go in there I could go in there as the boss and walk through their processes because a lot of times I wouldn't know that something was going wrong. I wouldn't know which piece of their process was feeding into what was going wrong, right? And so, like,
Mm.
it's really, really important to make sure that you record that and that you have that. But it's super helpful to have a software that will help you, like where the software company will help you when you get into struggles or something where you're in over your head and they can understand very quickly what's happening in your software.
No, for sure. And again, it's all about understanding, all about making sure that you have your processes in place. You could be working with the greatest thing on the planet, but if you don't have your crap together,
Mhm.
then what good is it? It's just a bucket of bullets.
Yeah, I think we forget that when it's on software or when it's on computers, that
Yeah,
it's just a bucket of bolts. If nobody knows how to use it and nobody's using it, it really doesn't mean anything. Bunch of
but that's
zeros and
also
ones.
that's also the key to things too. Is really getting in there, using it, and really understanding like what playing around with it. And, I'm pretty open to giving people a test account to play around with for like a week. I don't do free trials just because I don't see the value in a free trial. But we find if people are serious about signing up with us, I'll let you play around in the test account because, to feel around, get it acclimated, because seeing is one thing, but doing is another.
Mhm.
And I feel like this is a really big thing when it comes to choosing, especially for nonprofits. Like again, business people are a little bit more tech savvy, a little bit more into certain things. Some not, but when it comes to like these any organization, volunteer based organization, playing around with something really to really make a finite decision. I am a big proponent of that, and I find that a lot of these other platforms out there on the market, they're more so into let's do the demo, let's follow up with you, let's study the features, let's get you on board, and then we won't talk to you until it's time to upgrade your plan. And I feel like you got to go the opposite because you're dealing with sensitive people. You're dealing with people who are very much, need that hand holding. We signed up a guy like the other day who like needs a lot of hand holding, and that's fine. People need hand holding, But it when it comes in the software world, I was gonna say in the software world, the biggest killer of any SaaS company is churn. And people, you're kind of charging a card the subscription, but they're not using it. And then one day they wake up and they realize, hey, wait a minute, what did I buy? Then you're dealing with churn, and then people drop off. But if you mitigate the churn by actually getting involved with them and constantly showing up and seeing how can we help you, what do you have any issues, any problems, that's also the key. A very, very key component to look into is what's the customer success team like? Because
Yeah.
customer service is one thing, but customer success and client success is a whole nother animal. And I once, a long time ago, before I actually did my own thing, I did have a job. I worked as
Mhm.
client success for several companies in sales, and I found that the client success side was key because they want people to stick around. They want people to use the product, and you have to know what level of customer service and success you're going to get with these companies because you need the help. Like, do you ever find this?
Yeah, I actually yes. I do think and I think that's a great distinction and one that people wouldn't know to ask. Like, what is the customer success support what does
Right.
it look like, right? Um, yeah, because it's really, getting on the bike is one thing, learning how to ride the bike is a completely different skill, right? And we got to have both. We have to know how to be on the bike and balance, but we also have to know how to pedal and make the bike move forward. So I think that
For
is a really
sure.
important feature that, we should look into and make sure that we have. There was something that you said,
But I think it's like a key thing because really, like,
yes.
people are like, one, if you're any company, you want people to keep using your stuff. Like, you don't want them to drop off because that'd just be simple. You want to really make sure people are using your products. You want to be able to continue it again. It's like donations. It's continuing the conversation, staying top of mind. Because if you're and this is the key to anything. Be top of mind. Win it life, you know?
Yeah.
And when you're a lot of these bigger companies, and I've seen this, they have their customer service team where they'll direct you to a knowledge base or an AI chatbot. It's like, I don't want to talk to a robot. I want to talk to a human. Like people, it's becoming the norm, but people want to talk to humans. People want to feel like they they know that someone actually cares about them.
Yeah. I think that's so true in the nonprofit world, right?
Yes.
Uh, I actually did a training not too long ago that said we were looking at a report. Um, Gosh, I remember it's like the nonprofit peer report was the name of it, I believe. And they were talking about how concerned donors were about AI, and that
Mm,
I think about a third said that they may decline in giving to nonprofit organizations based on how they're using AI. And I think the key is, when are they talking to real people? They wanna know they're talking to real people. If you're using AI to shape your words and maybe, you know, uh, refine your words that you're sending out, that's an AI that people don't really know about. But when you're
right.
having the AI answer the phone or answer the chat bot for you, they figure it out when it gets stuck, and it seems to
Yes.
always have a moment where it gets stuck, right?
Yes.
And so
And but that's really like a very, very important thing because you want to be able to schedule with a person. You want to be able to know that you're being taken care of. You want to know that, like, yeah, and again, part of my standard onboarding is I don't take the training wheels off the bike until you're ready to ride.
mhm.
And people like that. And people ask me, how do you do that at scale? I said, because we work so hard to get you set up. We work with you in the beginning to get you set up that, some people end up taking to it like fish in water. Some people take a little bit longer, but again, the entire general philosophy is I want to make sure you're up and running so you can actually work and you can and do your thing and don't have to bother me. And
Yeah.
the truth is we don't hear from most of our users and we can see their activity and the usage rates and they're moving, they're shaking, they're getting things done. And that's the best. And really when a lot of people like poo-poo this, but like the customer success, the follow-up, the continuous like engagement is a really big component. And you can learn this lesson for your organization too follow up, keep up the conversation, stay top of mind, make sure that people know that you exist, and keep running that content that's going to engage with them, because otherwise you're going to lose them.
Yeah, so that's something that I see a lot with nonprofits. I'm sure you've heard this, and we're gonna talk about it because you're a marketer, and as a marketer, I'm sure you have an opinion on it.
I have lots
But
of opinions.
yeah, but organizations who are like, I'm afraid I'm emailing them too much, right? I'm sure you've heard it. How many times have you heard it? Or that we're going to
All the
charge them
time.
if they email them too much. And so as a response, they never email them at all. You know,
Correct.
and or once a month. And I think about how many things happen in my inbox once a month. If I'm not seeing you more regularly than once a month, a couple things might happen. One, when you do come in, I might miss you, right? I might miss you that time, the one time in the
Correct.
month that you came through. Um, or I don't engage because I know it's just your regular, like, it's too predictable, right? It's too predictable and
Correct.
it's not engaging. Um,
So
so yeah, tell me your marketer's opinion of that statement. I'm sure that
So
you
I hate that one all the time because people are like, we're going to email them too much and they're going to unsubscribe. It's like, no, this is actually the point, is that you want to hit them with a bunch of emails and keep, because then you're going to see who's actually your fan and who act with it. And that way you can clean up your list, hitting them with constant content is a way of gauging who's in, who's out, clean up your list, and then you can start spreading them out. And it's good to hit people because people want that. People want to see that you care about them. Because my biggest pet peeve is, oh, we're doing a fundraising campaign. We're trying to raise $1 million. How come how come no one on our list gave to us? It's like, well, when was the last time you had a conversation with them? One, well, last year. There you
yeah.
and if you don't start engaging with people and you don't start talking to them, you don't start cultivating them. And they want this. It's a human thing. They want to feel like you care about them. Some people have got onto your email list and opted into your email list for some reason or another. And the fact that you just dump them, like I'll tell you, we have a retention marketing system running on our site. So anybody who touches down on our site, we pick up their information and we subscribe them to our email list. We send them an email saying, thanks so much for checking out GiveSuite, blah, blah, blah. And now you're welcome to our newsletter. And we send out our newsletter every single week to these people. And the opens and click rates that we get from these anonymous lead traffic is through the roof because they had an intention of doing something on our site. It just didn't happen. Now they're on our newsletter. Now they're engaging with us.
And you reached
And
out to them, right? So
I
not
didn't know.
only
No, they came direct
well,
traffic to us.
right, they did it initially, but you reached back out to them,
Correct.
right? You
Correct.
like
Correct.
yeah, yeah. I
And
always
this actually,
cool. Oh, go ahead.
no, this is actually something we're doing in the marketing world, in the nonprofit marketing world that no one's doing is taking retention marketing tactics we've learned from e-commerce and bringing them to light to help expedite and it grows your donor list significantly.
Yeah,
Because you have
that's
all this
awesome.
traffic that you're not grabbing the information. And most people are just sending straight traffic from the site for no reason whatsoever. And you're missing opportunities.
Yeah.
But you want to be emailing people. You want to stay top of mind. And people who think that, then this is why they're always spinning their wheels. But once you create that fan base, you tell these people to jump, they say how high. You tell them to give, they say how much.
Yeah, because they really want to. And so when I work with nonprofits, I tell I tell them that as a fundraiser, it's our joy to be able to say, "Hey, we see this problem in the world. We know how to solve this problem, or we know how to address this problem at least. Would you like to solve the problem too?" Right? That's our initial conversation. And then when they say yes, you're the expert on how you're solving the problem. So it's your opportunity to be able to share that out with them and to be able to engage them further. Um, you know, I that's the beauty of what fundraising is. And so I do think it's so important to have those ongoing conversations. And if we wait too long between communications, a person has thousands of emails coming across their desks in a week, or I do at least. I can genuinely say thousands probably per week between 6 email accounts. And so tons of them. I see stuff on social media all the time. It's a couple of seconds. You only have a couple of seconds in
Yes.
any of these formats to make any type of impression. And so you have to think how many seconds this is going to take me to actually grab their attention, right? I might not do it the
Right.
first time. I might not do it the second time.
Right.
I'll
And
be
and
kind,
also and also you with constant communication, you never know
consistent.
constant yeah, constant consistent communication, you never know what's gonna spark someone's like interest, what's gonna be that spark that they ignite in them that's going to want them to do more than just click and open read.
Yeah.
Because everybody engages differently. Content pulls people differently, and you just have to understand this is why you have to create content that is engaging, that doesn't necessarily drive people to make a donation. Everyone screws this one up, isn't just like, oh, give us money or make a donation with us. It's like, no, you have to warm people up and you have to get them in the mood to want to give you money. And and people don't realize that because people don't think like that. They just think, oh, we need money. And when you're with the constant engagement, the constant communication, it's not a turn off. It puts people in the right space, in the right headspace, and then they see that you care. And with the right, and it goes back to having the right system to do this, because unfortunately, a lot of these email marketing platforms, they're extremely limited on the amount of emails you can send per day, and the amount of emails you can send per week, the amount of automations, the amount of actions you can do within your automations. And so having drip campaigns, and this is something that I found was like when I used to tell people, it's like, you're paying me a lot of money, making a lot of money, but if I don't have the right tools to do that, then we're just wasting our time. And I found that a lot of these platforms, these email marketing platforms, especially on the nonprofit discount plans, were very limiting on one automations to how many emails you could send out, when you could schedule the emails, when you could send the emails, the, the the how you can set up certain campaigns. And I was just like, this is so silly. Like, and how am I supposed to create these type of stuff? And then every time you're growing, they're charging you more money.
Yeah.
And even at 25% discount, that's still a lot of money. And I was like,
Yeah.
so having the right, and even with a lot of these systems that do have email marketing built in, they also have that same limitation. Your how many automations you can do, how many actions, how many sequences, how many different things. And the goal is you want to create different email sequences. You want to be able to create email texting sequences that are going to be part of your communication strategy. Because that way you're able to really keep up those conversations. And that stuff needs to money and it's low cost, high return because you're not paying unlike ads, you have to understand what your return on ad spend is going to be, what your audience is going to like, who you're going to be targeting. Is Facebook's algorithm going to like mess you up? With email, with texting, you have an audience of people who are ready to jump and ready to get you do whatever you want them to do. You just have to tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, what's up? And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a
That,
really big key component to your software stack and having a system for your nonprofit.
yes. And that is another point that I always emphasize to nonprofits is that when you have your own CRM, you're in control of that.
Correct.
Facebook, LinkedIn, they're all businesses in their own rights. And so, they get to control what they're in control of. And they have your name and they have your email address on their list and they use it,
Yep.
according to their own desires. But if something changes, then if that's what you've relied on as your primary source of communication, your organization may be in trouble. And so, yeah, actually, when new nonprofits or when I'm working with nonprofits and they're just moving onto CRM, it's the number one thing that I encourage them to start doing is to do email campaigns. Like
Yes.
the goal of it is to just get email addresses, to get that communication information
Correct.
so that we can now start having more conversations. So,
Oh, for
yeah.
sure. And when you have the right CRM like GiveSuite that does all your email marketing and all your follow up and all your automations within the email marketing and creating these, even drip campaigns, like drip campaigns, that's the key. Newsletters are great. Newsletters are one form of email communication. that GiveSuite does, and we have thousands of different templates you can choose. But drip campaigns are the key to continue the conversation. When you have a system like GiveSuite that has unlimited automations, limited actions, limited abilities to do drip campaign, you can create workflows and email sequences, 5 emails, 10 emails, 100 emails, and keep it up and and that's the whole key to success with email marketing for nonprofits is one, having the right platform to deliver, but having the conversation keep going, and you can always recycle the same email because if you're growing your list, more people are coming in. You're just starting over again. And in GiveSuite, there's no limitations on it.
Yeah, I want to emphasize that for anyone who's listening to this, that the drip campaign means that like we planned out that conversation in advance. And whenever they opt in to have that conversation with us, it's going to take them through the whole conversation. It is a beautiful thing. It's actually something I probably need to use better in my own business, but it is a really useful tool, especially in events. One of the things will frequently communicate is that when someone attends one of your events, it doesn't mean they actually know you. It just means they went to one of your events. And now we want them to learn more about us. So if we get a name, so when we collect the name from an event and we have a drip campaign to introduce who we are and what we do, now we are slowly taking them through a process of learning who we are, right? Learning about our organization and how they might be able to get involved. And all of a sudden, from the person who's receiving those emails, they feel like, wow, they really care about me. All I did was attend their event, and they're continuing to share with me more about them and more about how I can get involved with their organization. And that makes a person feel seen and valued. And so that's so, so important. And I think that many, nonprofits may think like that is something outside of our reach, but the CRM is a very simple way to make it within your reach. And now whoever's hosting an event, they just have to trigger a drip campaign, whenever they put in those names, and it's taken so much stress off of them. Now, when we have an event, we don't have to worry, do we have a follow-up process? Because we have not only a follow-up process, it's a very consistent follow-up process
Well,
that we use
what's
every time.
also I'll take it to the next level is that it's also the same thing with donation. And like,
Yes.
let's say you're running a fundraising campaign, right? And using one of these platforms to run your fundraising campaign because everything's a third party platform. And, you get all these people at the end of the campaign, and then you have to, most cumbersome thing, a lot of my clients in the agency side have said is we always hate downloading the list, uploading them, tagging them, and then sending out the post campaign email. By the time you do all that, you miss the opportunity. Everybody's cold. They're not going but but when you have automation, you have everything on one platform, the donation forms all connect to the automation, connect to the email. You can set the minute someone makes a donation, you can send them a receipt. You set a tag on them to know the campaign, and then put them on a drip campaign sequence that's going to follow up and tell thanks so much for the donation. I'm going to take you on a journey over the next several emails that's going to show you what your money's been doing. And then I use this opportunity on the marketing level to get people to convert from single donations to recurring donation because people are already hot, people are into it. And when you have that continuous conversation, that continuous movement, you're going to see significant increases in your donation. And to your point about event management, also, there's a lot of people, a lot of organizations do event management. They need to sell tickets, and some of these platforms is something to look into too. What's their event management system look like? How is it synced? How is the follow up? What's the ticket system like? We actually built that into GiveSuite too, because we saw that so many people were using third party platforms and being charged like insane amounts of money for these event management systems. So we just built it into GiveSuite. It's all connected to your process. But like, it's just, it's all about seamless automation, seamless integration in order to be able to make your life easier. And I think some of the key takeaways that when you're sitting down and you're having these conversations, some of these sales reps and these companies, is that understanding how is your platform going to make my life easier? What tools do you have in place that are going to be there for donor management, fundraising, and marketing? What's your customer success like? What's your customer service like? What's your onboarding like? How are you there to help me? And how long do I get with you? After how long we married for after I
Mhm.
sign up, and just understanding what what the limitations are, so that and where the thresholds are in order to plan accordingly. And if these people can't answer your questions right, then they might not be the right person to get better.
Yeah. I think those are all great things. And I think we've covered a lot of great questions you should inquire no matter what platform you're looking at. Ask these questions because these are the questions that can help you plan for your organization long term. So it's 3 o'clock, which I know your time, it's even later.
Yeah.
So you you wanna is there anything else you wanna say before we wrap up?
I mean, I just think that again, the biggest takeaway is understanding these points, and then that way you're gonna be able to become an educated consumer, and you can flip the tables on these sales reps who are just gonna parrot to you and like tell you, sell you the feature. Because I can't tell you time and time again how people come to me like these guys are just selling me features. It's like, yeah, I know. That's what they're trained to do. They're selling me features. Features are great, but like how does it work with what you're doing? And if they don't understand your business or take, and I've seen this in business world, like people don't understand if you don't understand your business. I've seen this with consultants too. No offense. I
Mhm.
think is it like people try to like like blanket like what they do. They think that their method works, one size fits all. If you don't understand my business, you don't understand what I'm doing, then how are you going to help? And so this is why you got to come as the educated consumer, flip the tables on these guys and ask them all these questions. So that way they'll be like, oh, huh, wait a minute, I have to think now. Jeez. And so once you get them into thinking mode, then you can really see what's going to be ideal for you and understand what your wants are, what your needs are, what your strengths are going to be, and how this is going to help you for the long term. It shouldn't be about, oh my God, it costs me this much money now today. It's like, well, what's your long lifetime value? What's your long term growth strategy? Are you like going to stay in this spot forever? Or are you going to try? You want to be $1 million organization? I would assume you want to be the $1 million organization. And this is something that we've really built into GiveSuite is helping empower these single people around organizations to be that $1 million nonprofit without breaking the bank.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I would say. And if anybody who's watching this talk wants to learn more about GiveSuite, um, or want some guidance in how to choose the right system. Again, if my platform's not for you, I'm not going to sell it to you. And again, you all think, oh, he's going to just sell his stuff to us. No, I'm pretty straightforward. If you're not ideal for my system, I will tell you this is not for you. You should go to this. I've done that. I've sent people to other companies because they were not a good fit for us, and they looked at me like I was weird.
Yeah, I do that too. Well, I do that too. My expertise is not it's not a good fit for everyone. If it's not the right fit, or if my methodology is not the right fit for you, you would be wasting your money on me. And I don't want that for any nonprofits. And I think that's the truth for you too, right? We're
Right.
here to build up the nonprofit
Right.
community. And we recognize that there are limited funds to invest sometimes. And we want to make sure that your investment is the right investment. So, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining for the conversation. Um,
My
hopefully
pleasure.
we will be able to upload this and people will be able to experience it not quite live.
Yeah.
So,
This is great.
yep. All right. See you later.